The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
The following program is closed captioned for the thinking impaired.
By tomorrow, I will rule the world!
You think he's gone? He's not gone. That's the whole point. He's never gone.
Is this some radical new therapy?
You see?
Well, I must have not been paying attention.
We got to get a much longer paying attention song. Hey, what's going on? Tom Duggan here on the Paying Attention podcast. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for everybody for listening. What's funny about this show is I thought it was a TV show. Little did I know, right? So we come in here to these great digs here at Studio 21 Podcast Cafe above the Two Guys Smoke Shop every Thursday at 2. And I'm always doing the show as if it's a TV show because we've got great digs here, right? Like, look at the set. We get the set. We're promoting our advertisers in the front. We get, a great set here. And come to find out, from talking to Dave Garofalo, that where we're most listened to and paid attention to is on the audio podcast on iHeartRadio and iTunes.
That's right.
And apparently our ratings are really good. Dave sent me a message on Facebook saying one day last week that what the numbers were. I can't remember what I can never remember numbers. And I was shocked. I was like, "Is that good? I think that's good. Is that good?" He's like, "No, that's great." So we appreciate everybody who downloads the podcast on iHeartRadio, on iTunes. We also appreciate our sponsors, A&B Auto in South Lawrence. Go see our buddy Angelo. If somebody hits your car, you get a little ding. You got something on your door you want to take care of, Angelo will take care of you. We've also got Century 21. Team Zingales in Methuen is sponsoring the program. Our good buddy Joe Zingales last year gave I think a $3,000 scholarship at our bash to a Methuen kid.
Wow.
To a kid from the Boys Club. And actually brought the head of the Boys Club and the YMCA for the event. That was really nice. He always supports what we do. And then we've got I'm trying to remember who our third sponsor is. I'll remember throughout the show. But I also want to thank, before we start, Kelly's Furniture in Lawrence. We always go to Kelly's Furniture at least once a year and see if we can get them to buy ads. And they always say, no, I thought they hated us. So I always walk out of there, or my sales girl will walk out of there thinking, geez, wow, Kelly, he's a Duggan. They should be buying ads off us. Like we all grew up in the same neighborhood. And Mary Kelly called me yesterday from Kelly's Furniture and said, I'm sorry we don't do any advertising with you. We just don't have an ad budget. But we know you're doing this charity bash on March 23rd. And we know that the raffle money is going to the veterans, so we want to donate a $300 power recliner to your raffle for the Valley Patriot Bash.
Wow.
So we want to thank them for that, because that's something. That's a great thing. We're not a nonprofit, so people who donate things to us can't write it off on their taxes. So when people give something like that, it means a whole lot more, because we're not a nonprofit, and they're not doing it because they're getting something from it. They're just doing it to help. So, all right. So that's the beginning of the show. We're waiting on Paul Morano. He's going to be a little late. Ira has the week off because he's moving. Kiana has the week off because she has the week off. And we have Paul coming. We've got Rich Russell here in the studio, my photographer, waiting on security too. I don't know what he is. But before we start with all of the political stuff, before we start with the discussions today, Meredith, who's also not with us. I'm not flirting with you. She's not here.
You don't know how relieved I am to hear that. I mean, that's good.
I feel like I need to be flirting with somebody, but there's nobody here to flirt with. So why don't we? I can flirt with Mr. Jonathan. He's kind of cute. With that bald head. So why don't we just get to news? Let's start with news, and hopefully by the time we're done, Paul will be here, and we can start talking about all kinds of other stuff. We got a couple of really big stories today too.
Big stories.
Really
lots of stuff going on. So, Tom, first story today that we have for you is related to that terrible news out of Florida yesterday about that mass shooting at a high school in Broward County. And so, as you probably know, authorities are reporting that there are at least 17 people who have lost their lives in that mass shooting incident, and numerous other people were injured. So not long after the shooting, President Trump issued a statement and sent out a tweet. He was offering his condolences, and he added, quote, "No child, teacher, or anyone else should ever feel unsafe in an American school." Now, not long after that, Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton was quick to respond. He said he agreed with every word President Trump said.
Wait, who said that?
That's Congressman Seth Moulton. But
he said okay. There had to be a but.
There had to be a but. You knew there was more of a story. Then he added, quote, "I invite him to get off his ass and join me in doing something about it." End quote.
Yeah, well, Congressman Moulton's idea of doing something about it is taking guns away from people. That's his idea of doing something about it. So I'm pretty sure that we don't want President Trump doing that. What's really sad about all this, I know you probably have more to talk about, but every time something like this happens, I think we're just kind of used to the fact that a tragedy happens and immediately people start exploiting the bodies before they're even cold. And you got politicians out there. It took Anderson Cooper all of 5 seconds last night to blame Donald Trump for this.
That's immediately what it is. Who's to blame?
Right.
And then who are we going to point the finger at in terms of how we're going to prevent this again?
Right.
The debate just rages on that. So what do you think the debate is this time?
Well, it's always guns, right? It's guns, mental health, and drugs. And the real thing here is we should be talking more about drugs. Because we find out, when you dig down 6 months, 8 months, 10 months after a tragedy like this, you find out that these shooters, almost all of them are on some kind of psychological, psychotropic medications. Mm-hmm. But that never gets the front page of the New York Times, right? That never gets the front page of the Boston Globe. It gets mentioned in like the 19th paragraph 6 months later when they're doing some kind of a big story.
Right. Yep.
But, the fact is that, first of all, what people need to understand in a free country is that your government is not there to flip and prevent anything. All right? Government's job is to respond to what people do in a free society. Otherwise, you're not a free society. Communists and fascists and socialists and other types of governments, they have laws to restrict your free speech, to restrict your freedom of movement, your freedom to associate, based on what they think you might do wrong against their laws. Yep. And they can arrest you before you even do anything.
But that's not us.
But that's not us. So Can we stop with what could we have done to prevent it? In a free society, there is nothing you can fucking do to prevent somebody from choosing right now to pick up a gun, walk into a mall, and shoot people. We all want to feel like we're in control of our society, and so it's natural human behavior to think, well, what could we have done? Let's analyze it. Maybe we could have prevented it. But that maybe is the most important word of that sentence.
Right.
Because there really isn't anything you can do about it. Unless somebody goes on Facebook and says, at 2 o'clock tomorrow, I'm walking into a bank and I'm robbing it and I'm shooting a teller. Other than that, there's really nothing you can do to stop it. So let's just stop pretending we can do something to stop it. Let's look at what's going on. Let's look at the dynamic of our society and start looking for things that we can do to maybe have an environment where these things aren't glorious to young people. They think that they're going down in a blaze of glory, that they're doing something good, and they're not. And you have a lot of kids in this country growing up with no dads, and you have a lot of kids growing up with dads that suck. And so I think the first thing we can do if we want to prevent these kind of things, if you're a dad, be a dad to your kids. Mm-hmm. Like, be around, show up,
live up to it,
do things with them, and don't be their best friend. You're their parent. You're not their friend. They have friends. Their friends are their age.
Right.
And your job is not to make them happy and be their friend. Every time I hear a guy say, oh, yeah, my kid's my best friend, I'm like, well, then you must be a horrible father. Mm-hmm. Because I don't want my daughter to be my best friend. Well, I don't restrict what my best friends do. They're my friends. My daughter's my daughter.
Yep.
So, anyways.
Well, thoughts and prayers to the people of Florida on that tragedy for yesterday. Thoughts with the first responders who are still dealing with that situation down there. And I guess we'll have to see what Congress does in terms of a response and debate. I think we're going to probably be talking about it for a long time to come.
Yeah, there is one thing we can do if we want to at least try to prevent stuff like this. Where was the police officer in that school?
I heard that supposedly in Broward County, it's standard that they have a couple of cops at every school.
Yeah, but I heard there was no cops in that school.
I don't know.
If you have a cop in the school, if you have teachers that are armed, I know now every liberal listening just drove off the road, right? Oh, you're going to arm teachers?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Here we go.
We want to arm teachers. Yeah. Because when someone walks into a school and that teacher's in charge of protecting the 30 kids standing in front of them, someone walks in with a gun, it would be nice if you had somebody shooting back. And, the argument against that is, well, you don't want it to be the Wild West. Newsflash, it's the fucking Wild West now. Turn on your TV right now while you're listening to the show and look at what you see. It's the Wild West. But it's the criminals that have all the weapons. Mm-hmm. The good guys don't have anything to protect themselves. I carry a weapon. I carry a Springfield 9 XDS. It's my favorite gun that I've ever fired. It's light. I always have it on me. I take it with me everywhere.
Yep.
I take it with, there's nowhere. And if I go somewhere like a nightclub or something and they're patting people down, I don't go in. Mm-hmm. Because anybody can sneak in a back door and they've got an entire room of people that are fish in a barrel that can't defend themselves. Guns are about defending yourself. And very few people take a gun and go and do what this clown did yesterday. But I bet you if you had 2 armed cops in that building, fewer kids would be dead. And maybe the suspect would be dead instead of now we're going to pay for him to have 3 meals a day and heat and cable. And he's going to get time at the weight yard. And he'll probably have 1 million girls sending him letters saying how much they love him, like all these other nutcase mass murderers. The guy should be dead. I wish they'd taken him out. But I do want to talk about one thing that you brought up, and that's the first responders, Fred.
Yep.
I don't think people realize that these first responders are human beings. And you take a 25, 26, 28-year-old kid who just got out of the police academy, you send him into a grammar school or a high school where there was just a shooting. He's looking at people that are almost his age. And they've got to go through that school and still do their job, even though they're stepping over the bodies of 13 and 14.
Can you imagine that? Kids. Can you imagine being in that position and having that stress and that trauma? I mean, that's unreal.
And then you go home and your wife's yelling at you because you didn't take the garbage out or something. And, these are serious things that our law enforcement has to deal with.
Yep. And
most people don't ever think about that. So I want to point that out, that you've got law enforcement officers from multiple agencies that went in there.
Absolutely.
And had to see that.
Right.
And that takes a toll on them. It certainly does, because I know at least 2 cops right now that had to take someone's life.
Yep.
And they're having a hard time with it, even though they've been cleared and the shooting was good. They had to shoot the guy. They had no choice.
Yep.
They're still having a hard time with it because they took someone's life.
Right.
So, anyways.
Well, Tom, we talk about Congress a lot, and now we're going to have some news about the race to replace one congressman from Massachusetts, and that's Congressman Nikki Tsongas.
This is getting
the 3rd congressional district. A lot of stuff going on.
This is getting real dirty real fast.
Well, it's really,
I've got something to add. I've got something to add to your report.
Okay, well, I look forward to hearing that. But first, so this week, congressional candidate Dan Coe, he's one of the Democratic candidates.
We're going to try and get him on the show. We want Dan Coe on the show. We want you on.
Definitely. So he received the endorsement of former U.S. Senator Russ Feingold. So Feingold represented Wisconsin in the U.S. Senate from 1993 to 2011, and he's considered to be a leading advocate for campaign finance reform, which is an issue that Coe's been talking about on the campaign trail. And the former senator's Political Action Committee, Legit PAC, I don't know how you say that, but I think Legit PAC also threw its weight behind Coe. Now, meanwhile, Coe's fellow Democratic candidate, State Representative Juana Matias, has announced a series of endorsements of her own, some of them from elected officials on Beacon Hill, in addition to Lawrence Mayor Dan Rivera and State Representative Frank Moran. Meanwhile, State Senator Barbara L'Italian, who's also running for the seat.
She was supposed to be our guest today, but she never confirmed.
Well, maybe she'll be back on the show.
Maybe
That'd be great.
Love to have her.
So she's been endorsed by Mass Nurses Association and by firefighters unions in Andover and in Lawrence. So, Tom, you've been following this race. What do you think about all that? What's this news you're talking about?
Well, okay.
What I missed?
I've got some additional news for you. There's one of the candidates, Lori Trahan.
Yep.
I think she's out of Lowell, if I'm remembering right.
That sounds right.
I actually got a chance to meet her a little bit at Jessica Finnicar's fundraiser a few weeks ago. Apparently, there's a letter going around to all of the Democrat city committees with a copy of the Office of Campaign Finance report from Ms. Trahan from several years ago, making a financial donation to Charlie Baker.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
okay.
This is breaking news because nobody's talking about this, and I haven't seen it in any newspaper. So if you're watching the show or listening to the show, all 5 of you, you just got something nobody else has, because this is going to be very big news in the next couple of days, because I'm breaking it today on the Valley Patriot website, and then the Globe's going to grab it immediately. You know the progressives are going to flip out. Yep. It was a race where Charlie was running for, and I don't think it was the governor's race, or it might have been in a primary. He had no opponent.
Wow.
And the progressives are sending letters out to all the city committees saying she's a fake progressive. She's not a real progressive.
Oh, wow.
She's not really a liberal. She's a dino, Democrat in name only. She supported the evil Charlie Baker. He's a Nazi because he's got an R next to his name. And there's an awful lot of anger right now over Lori Trahan's check that she wrote to Charlie Baker.
Well, and bad time for that too, because a lot of those Democrats, they're meeting in caucuses right now for the convention. Isn't that right? So that a lot of them talking, a lot of those meetings. Yep. So news travels fast.
So as far as the other candidates, when Juana Matias, she's like 12 years old, right? She's never held office before. She ran for state rep against Marcos Devers in a primary. She beat him in a primary because it was a primary and everyone thought Marcos was going to win, so they stayed home.
Right.
And so she won. So she's in the first year of her first term as a state representative, and she's like 12. I say 12 because I'm an old man. To me, she's 12. She's probably like 25, 30 years old baby. I bet you she's not even 30. She is 30? She's 30, okay. To me, that's 12, right? So when she first announced, I said she has zero chance of winning. First of all, you need to raise $2 million easily if you want to be competitive in that race.
A lot of money. Yep.
I don't think she can raise that. But boy, I'll tell you, everywhere I go, and when I go to all these political events, and you've got all the congressional candidates there, and I just talk to the regular people that are in attendance,
right?
She seems to be their favorite candidate.
Where all the buzz is around her.
The buzz is about her.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, A, she's Latino, she's a female, and she's for sanctuary cities and letting all the, let every illegal alien come here. Let's make them all citizens. Let's give them all free stuff. Let's give them free housing. Let's give them welfare. And that's who votes in Democrat primaries.
So talk about that for a minute. I mean, do you think we're really seeing a shift in the Democratic Party here in the States, even more progressive candidates?
Yes. Donald Trump has made Massachusetts run further to the left.
Yeah.
And the progressives are much louder, and they're much more active, and they're donating a lot more money.
Yeah.
And they're much more hateful. Like, they're really going after, and it's the reason I left the Republican Party. They circle the wagons and they shoot in. They're more concerned with who's a rhino. What Republican amongst us didn't vote 100% of the time with what we wanted, and attacking them rather than attacking the other side for being 100% wrong.
Right.
And the Democrats, the progressives especially, do the same thing. They're so filled with hate for Donald Trump. They're so filled with hate for anyone that doesn't agree with them on every issue that they circle the wagons and shoot in too. So I think they're going to go after Lori Trahan very hard in the next couple of days. Remember where you heard it first. But I think one has got a shot because you've got all these people out there who think that America is just the rest of the world.
Yep.
They buy into this. We're all immigrants. Guess what? We're not all immigrants. Okay, immigrant actually means something. It's when you come here from somewhere.
Right.
My ancestors came here 9 generations ago. I'm an American. This is my country. You're an American. You were born here. This is your country. And it doesn't belong to the rest of the world. America's a boat that's got 50 people in it. There's 400 people trying to climb in. What happens if they succeed? Boat sinks. And so we can't have everyone in the world coming here. Warner thinks that's the way to go. The Democrats agree with her. I'm going to upgrade her shot from 0% to like maybe 20. And given you got 13 people in the race, that's pretty good.
We'll see. And she's raising money. So
she
she's
is
getting
raising
toward
money.
that goal.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens. So while we're on the subject of politics, Lowell Sun is reporting, and I think maybe some other outlets are reporting too, State Senator Barry Feingold is thinking about waging a campaign to regain his seat in the state Senate that's currently held by Barbara Italian, who's running for Congress.
And we talked about that on our first show 5-6 weeks ago.
So no announcement has been made, but supposedly he's thinking about running. It's creating quite a buzz in Merrimack Valley politics.
He is definitely running.
You think so?
And I can tell you how I know.
Okay.
The day that Jeff Riley resigned as the superintendent in Lawrence, I walked into the South Lawrence East School Library where the event was supposed to take place, and the first person I saw was Barry. And I said, Barry, I haven't seen you since the last time you were on the ballot. What are you running for? And he didn't say, I'm not running for anything. I'm just here to watch this event.
Right.
He laughed and went, we could talk about that later.
Oh, there you go.
I know for a fact he's running.
You're a politician. That's a sign.
That's it. I know Barry.
It. Yeah.
And you know what? If he runs, everybody else in the race just stay home.
Yep.
Like, don't waste your money. Don't waste your family's time. Don't take time away from your work.
Yep.
Don't borrow money to run.
Right.
Barry's got more money than God. His wife's got even more money than that. And he is the golden-haired child of that district. This was his seat once before. He's going to take it back.
Yep. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right, so enough about politics for a minute, right? I think you'll get back to that later in the show. You got some more to talk about with that. But let's talk about some local events that were happening this week. We start in Methuen, where the police department is actively seeking 2 suspects allegedly involved in a home invasion on Tuesday afternoon. So on Tuesday, the 13th, at approximately 11:28 a.m., Methuen police responded to a residence on Ruskin Avenue for a report of a home invasion. The calling party stated that 2 men forced their way into her apartment and held her against her will in the bedroom before fleeing the scene in an unknown direction. Victim reported that one of the suspects was carrying a long gun. Nothing's been reported missing at this time, but Mass State Police and Methuen Canine units responded to the scene to assist locating the suspects. And as far as we know, they're still at large.
Yep. Methuen's looking for a couple of people. I think they got a bank robber that they're looking for, too.
Yep.
The Methuen Police Department is an extremely professional department. There's no question in my mind that they're going to end up finding this guy.
I think they will.
But you're starting to see a lot more home invasions. You're starting to see a lot more pistol whipping. You're starting to see a lot, and it's all drug related.
Yep.
And it's all spilling over from Lawrence.
Yep.
And people could say you dump on Lawrence. Listen, Lawrence has earned it. Look at what's going on in Lawrence just today. We've got 3 different outside law enforcement agents right now while we're on the air doing raids in Lawrence. They called me this morning. I'm like, I got a show I have to do. I can't be there, but I'll be there after the show. And those guys come into Lawrence, and you could send 10 agencies into Lawrence. They could work every neighborhood 24/7 for the next 6 months and still not get everybody that they need to get. Methuen is having, while Lawrence's violence is going down, it went down 40% the last 30 to 60 days, Methuen's is going up. And we heard Alan DeNaro here, the chief of Haverhill, when he was on our first show back in December, I think it was the last week of December, say that, when things get hot in Lawrence, they all come to Haverhill. They go to the surrounding communities, and that's where they go, and that's where they're selling their drugs, and that's where they're committing their violence. And then when it gets hot in Haverhill, they go back to Lawrence. I don't know how you stop that unless you have some kind of a regional interdiction team where they can hit Lawrence and Haverhill at the same time, maybe. I feel bad for the people of Methuen that live in those neighborhoods, and I definitely feel bad for the law enforcement officers in Methuen who aren't used to seeing this kind of stuff, and they're starting to see it more and more.
It's getting really rough. Yeah. Well, we got 2 success stories in the region.
I love good news. I love good news. Yep.
And this is all regarding the war on opioids. And so we go to the where the Troop A Community Action Team of the Mass State Police was out in full force in Lawrence this week, and they were netting a large quantity of heroin in 2 separate arrests. So
I read that somewhere.
Yeah, I think this was ripped out of the pages of the Valley Patriot.
Excellent.
Actually,
that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Free plug.
In the first case, that's where all the news is, right?
Right.
That's the news of record is on the Valley Patriot.
ValleyPatriot.com is where you get all this stuff.
That's where I get my news.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love to hear that.
In the first case, the arrest of an unlicensed motor vehicle operator resulted in the discovery of approximately 130 grams of a substance that was believed to be either heroin or fentanyl, and approximately 12 grams of a substance believed to be cocaine. Now, in a separate incident later that evening, there was a motor vehicle stop that resulted in an arrest of an operator for a forged driver's license. And in that case, further investigation of that vehicle revealed approximately 500 grams of a substance that was believed to be heroin.
Wow.
So both those subjects were held on $100,000 cash bail each, and they're scheduled to be arraigned this week. So some good news.
Yeah, it's great news. I love the CAT guys, what's it called, the Community Action Team?
Yep, CAT, yep.
So what the Mass State Police did is they put together this elite unit of guys, and they send them into places like Lawrence.
Right.
And we know, anybody who knows law enforcement, I know a lot of people don't, so I'll just tell you what I know. So we know, those of us who know about law enforcement know that, when they go into a community, the best way to get the big guys is to go after the little crimes.
Right.
You're pulling people over for running a stop sign. You're pulling people over for having a tail light out, and you find heroin in the trunk. Mm-hmm. Or you find that they've got a gun and they're on their way to go do something bad. And liberals and Democrats are always really unhappy about that kind of stuff because they always like to protect criminals. And they're always out there trying to stop the cops from doing that kind of that kind of thing. Why don't you focus on the big stuff? But that leads you to the big stuff.
Right.
And so these guys come into Lawrence, and they go after the small stuff while the undercover units are doing raids and things like that. But they do it at the same time.
Right.
So if someone flees a raid, you've got the CAT team somewhere in that neighborhood that you're going to have no problem pulling them over a block or 2 away.
Right.
And we've seen it. We've done it live on Facebook.
Absolutely.
And it's great. And you know what? These kids, they just graduated I don't know, Rich, do you know how many guys they just graduated from the Mass State Police Academy? It was 300 guys or something like that.
Right? Yeah.
Well, they took a third of those guys and assigned them to Lawrence.
Really?
And said, you're going to cut your teeth in Lawrence. Because if you can do it in Lawrence, you can
do it anywhere.
Go anywhere in the country.
Go anywhere.
You can do policing. No question about it.
That's great. Well, that's a lot of drugs off the streets, and that's some 2 guys off the streets who are...
The real problem. I talk to the state police guys all the time, and we're going to give an award to them at our charity bash this year.
Good. They deserve it.
They do deserve it. But, they always... They're not shy about telling us what their deficiencies are. Mm-hmm. They always like to try and chat with us about how the politicians could make things better, because they know I talk to a lot of politicians.
Yep.
And I was talking to a couple of guys last night while I was out on the road, and they were telling us, two of the biggest problems that they're having with finding, especially fentanyl dealers, is the first is that they can't train drug dogs to smell fentanyl because it's so dangerous. The dogs, dogs are dropping dead.
Wow. So
even just a tiny, tiny little bit of amount, even like a kilogram can kill a dog.
Wow.
So they can't train the dog. So when they pull over a car and they think it's fentanyl, they can't test it because the cop could die, right?
Yeah. So
they find something. It might be fentanyl. It might not be fentanyl, but they've got to really rip those cars apart. I mean, I've seen them on School Street pull open the hood of a car and start pulling out the air filters and everything else trying to find stuff.
Yeah.
And because you can't have a dog, right? You can't have the dog walk around the car and say, "Yeah, there's something here," because they can't train the dogs.
Wow.
I mean, it's a huge problem. The other problem that they're having is they said with the drug dogs is that now that marijuana is legal in Massachusetts, most of the older drug dogs were trained to smell marijuana.
Yeah.
So if there's fentanyl in the car, they'd pull the car over, the dog would flip out because he's smelling the marijuana, because everybody was smoking marijuana in the car before they get pulled over, right? But that's not illegal unless you're the driver.
Yeah.
And the dog doesn't smell any of the heroin or any of the coke or anything else. So now they have to have a whole new breed of drug dogs for the Mass State Police and the Essex County Sheriffs and all the other departments, because of the strength of the fentanyl in the car. Fentanyl is literally killing people.
That's amazing.
It really is.
Wow. So what do they do about that? I mean, is that a money issue? Is that just a resources issue? You got to train the dog or what?
I asked the guys last night, like, what's the solution? They don't know. Yeah. They don't know. They have no idea how they can train a dog to smell fentanyl without killing the dog during the training. Wow. Because it's just that potent.
You need a robot or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there's got to be some way to do it. And I'm sure that the geniuses that run our Mass State Police, I don't say that sarcastically, they are geniuses.
They're heroes.
I think they'll come up with something.
Yep.
But in the meantime, a lot of these fentanyl guys are getting away because you just can't test it.
Well, in this case, we got 2 cases actually where they did not get away, and every one of those is a good success story.
Love it.
So, Tom, that wraps up your news.
I can't. Paul's not here yet.
Uh-oh. What can we talk about?
Didn't you have something on Elizabeth Warren?
Well, it was interesting recently. So she made some comments about her heritage.
She did not.
She did. She actually did. She was speaking.
Talk about being too stupid to be on your own side.
So she essentially, if I'm not mistaken, she was speaking about her Native American heritage, and she confirmed her ancestry of Native American roots, but denied being a member of a Native American tribe based on that. She made a distinction between those two things.
So she's claiming she's an Indian, but she can't tell us what kind of Indian.
Well, she's not a member of a tribe. She says that's a different thing. But in terms of ancestry, in terms of family history, confirms that and spoke a lot about it, and also urged people to advocate for issues that are in favor of Native Americans, that help the Native American community.
Very smart. She's very smart. She's steering into the skid. I always
steering into the skid. There you go.
I always advise whenever a candidate calls me and says I need some advice and it's something like this, I'm like, you know what? Embrace it. Right? And if it's kicking the crap out of you, no matter what you say, you can't get away from it, embrace it.
But so where's the skid? I mean, why now? What's all this about?
Well, because she's got some competition this year. She's on the ballot, right? So she's going to face either Jeff Deal or Mr. Kingston or Mr. Shiva, who I don't think has as much of a chance as maybe one of the other two. But let's face it, no one's going to beat Elizabeth Warren in Massachusetts. It's a communist state. She's a communist. They love that she's a communist. And she comes out and she says things. I mean, basically, she cares more about the citizens of other countries than she does the citizens that are here voting for her. And those citizens don't care. So I don't see anybody beating Elizabeth Warren in Massachusetts. I guess I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, not often, but I have. But God, to get up and start talking about your Indian heritage. You say she confirmed it. How did she confirm it? With just words? Did she just pull out a DNA, ancestry DNA?
I don't know. But,
I think
talked a lot about it.
If you're going to do that, Elizabeth Warren, what you ought to do, and I'm not. Look, I would never vote for her, okay? But I don't dislike her as a person. I'm not one of these people that's a hater. But if you're going to do that, if you're going to come out and you're going to talk about your ancestral heritage, your Indian heritage, when it's been called this much into question publicly, why not show up with Ancestry DNA and say, okay, here it is. Here's the proof I'm Indian. Saying it with words doesn't mean shit to me. I mean, people say stuff all the time. People say, I'm going to vote for this, and they vote for the opposite thing. They say, I like that candidate, and they vote for somebody else. So don't stand at a microphone and tell us you're an Indian. Ancestry DNA is like $39.99 or whatever it is. Send it in, get your DNA, show us that you're an Indian, and I'll be the first one to say the Republicans were wrong for questioning you and doubting you. Absent that, I'm with them. I mean, where's your proof? Quite frankly, Fred, I have a big problem with this whole Pocahontas thing anyway. Can we digress a little bit?
Sure.
All right. I don't think it ever should have been an issue. I don't think the Republicans ever should have used it in the last election. I cringe every time the president calls her Pocahontas. I cringe every time a Republican Tea Party member comes on my Facebook page and calls her Pocahontas, because she's a communist. And she wants to take away our rights. She wants to take our free speech rights away. She wants to discriminate against people based on how much money they make. Her actions contradict everything she says she believes in. Talk about that. Talking about Pocahontas makes it an issue about something that doesn't affect anybody's lives and might be even defensible on her end somewhere down the line. She could show up with an Ancestry DNA 5 months from now and go, aha, here it is, right? And then where did that get anybody on the other side? So I always cringe when I hear the Pocahontas stuff, because it is a valid issue, or it was a few years ago, because she's the whitest white person on the face of the earth claiming minority status to get into Harvard. And then she lectures the rest of us about race. That's why it's relevant. But it's certainly not relevant 5 years later. It's certainly not, and you're calling her Pocahontas everywhere you go. It distracts from how dangerous she is in the Senate. I think they should be concentrating on the issues. That's just me.
Well, since this is your show and your views, that's a good thing to talk about.
What do you think? What do you think, Fred? You're a news guy.
Just the news here.
That was the right answer. That was the right answer.
Straight news.
I love
Opinions are Tom Duggan and Tom Duggan alone.
Why isn't my girl Meredith here?
Not feeling well today.
I did not tell her that being sick was ever an excuse to not be here to entertain me.
I know. I'm trying to do my best, but
even if she just came and sat in the audience so I could look at her, because I need something.
Sorry,
the show.
Sorry.
Maddie's not here.
There's only so much I can do. I try.
The real issue is that his back is to the producer. He can't see me. At least that would be something.
That would be something.
I mean, I could float with Sean the barista, but he might like it, so I don't know. Sean the barista. He said he would like it. How about my special coffee there, Sean? If you don't mind, I'll even pay for it.
It's on the way.
The coffee's free here, right? Isn't the coffee free?
Something like that. I don't know. Coffee's good here. We can say that.
Everybody keeps saying it's on Tom. I don't know what that means.
Oh, God, probably
Tom will tell us.
I got a tab in the back for $300.
There you go.
Unbelievable. So, do you have anything else at all? Because otherwise, we have to take a break, and they're going to come back without Paul.
I have one thought on everybody that's screaming gun control after gun violence.
Yes, Mr. Jonathan.
What about the unintended consequences of not being able to stop someone from going into just about any hardware store and building themselves a pipe bomb that would cause much more damage than a handgun or a rifle, or even if you had an AK-47 looking assault rifle type thing? As fast as you can pull the trigger, you can shoot the bullets. At the very least, that's one person at a time, as opposed to launching a bomb into a crowd of people.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we live in a free society, right? And this is what CNN doesn't get, and this is what the Democrats don't get. We live in a free-flipping society. So you're not going to be able to outlaw all fertilizer, right? The guy that blew up the Murrah building?
That's right.
The only white guy that ever committed terrorism in America that the liberals love to talk about every single time the Muslims come up. The guy went and he bought fertilizer. He blew up a federal building. We're in a free country. I mean, the Democrats seem to think that the solution is don't be a free country, right? Let's take people's guns. Let's have more restrictive government. But look at the government. Look at the government. We had this mass shooting, Fred, in Los Angeles. What was it now? 2 months ago?
At Las Vegas.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What did I say?
Well, yeah, Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, right?
Yeah.
And do we know anything more now about that shooter and why he did what he did and what he did, or even what happened in that room here 2 months later? We don't know.
Very quiet.
We don't know a damn thing.
Very quiet. Yeah.
The casino has bought off law enforcement agents, and you know I'm pro-law enforcement, so I don't rip law enforcement unless they deserve it. But they bought off law enforcement agents in Las Vegas. They probably bought off law enforcement agents at the federal level, and they have completely whitewashed this entire thing. Mm-hmm. And when you've got that kind of corruption going on, it just breeds more mass shootings. So when CNN and the Democrats get together after a mass shooting and start talking about taking people's guns and making the country less free to make it more safe, I just say, well, aren't you the people that say that those who would sacrifice freedom for liberty deserve neither? Aren't you the guys that say that? Mm-hmm. Like, it's the Democrats that say that. So why is it every time there's a mass shooting, your first go-to is to take away our freedom? Because, again, 2 cops in that building might have taken the guy out. You might have one victim of 3 instead of 17. Mm-hmm. Look at my favorite example on this is Colin Ferguson. I don't know if you remember in the late 90s, Colin Ferguson stepped onto a subway platform in Long Island and randomly shot 29 people. Mm-hmm. And, New York has the strictest gun laws much in the country.
Very strict.
Not one person had a gun to defend themselves. Mm-hmm. If one person on that train had a gun to defend themselves, they could have plugged him after the 3rd or 4th shot.
Right.
And instead of having 29 people dead, you'd have 3 dead, maybe 4 with the suspect.
Yep.
Instead, the guy shot 20. The guy shot till he ran out of bullets.
Yep.
So anywhere you see this is a gun-free zone, I go to the movies very seldom, but when I do, there's always a thing that says, no guns allowed. This is a gun-free zone. F you. F you. I'm bringing my gun. When I go to the post office, I bring my gun. If I have to go to a school for some kind of a school event that I'm covering, this is a gun-free zone. You can't. Screw you, because I'm fishing a barrel and I'm sitting with a bunch of kids, and that's a big target. Oh, Sean, the barista. Thank you, Sean. I would flirt with you because Meredith's not here, but you look fabulous today. I love the purple hair. It's just delicious. He's in hysterics out there. Oh my God, that really literally is the best coffee I've ever tasted in my life. So, all right, do you have anything else for us, Fred?
That's it.
Why don't you tell people who you are and why you're here?
Well, I am one half of Lyric Consulting and Lyric Properties. We separately offer communications and marketing services for small businesses, including the Valley Patriot and Mr. Tom Duggan. So if you need to book Tom Duggan for a speaking engagement or to come talk to a group or do some educational work, anything like that, or if you're interested in advertising here on the Paying Attention podcast here at the Studio 21 Cafe, please give us a call. We know exactly where to find them.
Give them the number.
And so call me at 978-494-4450.
Give it again, because for the audio people.
Absolutely. 978-494-4450, or look us up at lyricconsulting.com.
All right. When we come back, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Paul Morano is here. I have got the best... Do we have audio and video or just audio?
I've got audio.
We have the best audio. You guys are going to laugh your friggin' asses off when we play this. Yesterday in Hillsborough County Superior Court, there was a First Amendment trial, Acadia versus Michael Demers. And at the beginning, they had to stop the trial to talk about somebody who wasn't even in the room. Me! Back after this on Paying Attention.